The exhibition, Ágora, is built in different movements. And these different movements represent the way Mark Bradford, as an artist, as a citizen, has responded to the crisis. We just talked about the tapestries that were a response to the pandemic, to racial tension, racial violence. And the entire exhibition actually follows this logic. And it was the goal of bringing all these works together. So we can understand, we can see, almost live, an artist negotiating difficult times. Some of the work here dates from the 2018, 2019, at a moment where political violence in America was on the rise. And Mark conceived of a body of work around the notion of Cerberus is this mythological creature. It's a three-headed dog who's the gatekeeper of hell. So when Mark worked on this body of work, he anticipated something, he perceived something that was in the making. He perceived intuitively, but also historically, because he's a student of history, a student of mythology. He saw the signs of what was happening around him. When a few months after he did actually this group of work, Cerberus, one could say that all hells broke loose and the work went down to hell. Again, violence, pandemic. The exhibition is very much built around this moment when Mark Bradford, as an artist, was processing how to continue to work, and also what kind of mark you would leave behind. How do you present and represent what's happening? Because these images, this work, will stand for many, many years as almost testimony of this transitional moment at the beginning of the 21st century. The underlayer of many of the work that you see in this group of work, either it's Cerberus here or the gatekeeper here, are based on a system of maps. So in the first room, we had an underlayer that was a tapestry, the medieval tapestry. So here again, Mark built up, create this palimpsest, this covering over an existing image. And he explained that he likes to work from existing material. He doesn't invent history, he works from existing history. So if you take this work, for instance, Cerberus, the creator, gatekeeper of hell, well, that tells you a little bit what you're looking at. But Mark is also extremely subtle in the way he titled the work, because he doesn't want to be illustrative. The work is not illustrative. The work ambitions, rightfully, to have a universal value. You can look at it now, in 20 years, but maybe you would have been able to look at it 50 years ago. So the underlayer of Cerberus is a map of Los Angeles. A map of Los Angeles that was created after the Watts riot in 1965, where the governor of California ordered a study called the McCone Report, which aim was to understand the roots, the manifestation, and eventually the solution of urban violence. And Mark got fascinated by these maps that were covered with different dots. And these dots were color-coded. So you had red dot for murder, you had green dot for looting, blue dot for fire. And Mark was looking at these maps from the Macon report and started to look at a system of colorful dots. So he took this map, and as he will do later with the tapestry, and we just looked at them, he started also to cover them, layer them with paper, also with ropes. It's like drawing with these cords that you see here. Actually, you see this big line here that really is the negative space of a rope that Mark Bradford has pulled away from the painting. And then it's sanded. You can see, when you again come closer to the work, that what looked actually quite decorative from a distance is actually rough. You can see the violence of the gesture. At times, you can see how much, there's so much sanding on the work that the raw canvas is appearing. And Mark applied these dots there, and at times they are sanded and disappear, and at times they just show up. Of course, a map is a language, a specific language, and as every language, you can manipulate language. So a map is not a neutral document. You can control the map, and map of urban spaces, of urban planning, are maps of decisions. I mean, it's well known that many, for instance, neighborhoods in the United States or the freeway systems in the United States were mapped in such a way that they would go across certain neighborhoods, mostly African-American neighborhoods, so that the neighborhood would be divided. So even the mapping is a strategy of control. It's not a passive. Mapping is an action. Mapping is an action motivated by politics and decision. And mapping is done by the community in control. The person who controls the map controls the world. Actually, we're in Portugal. Portuguese draw maps in order to go and explore. So the map is an active tool. It's also important that it's a map of Los Angeles. It explains, or it shows, that Mark really worked from where he is, from the proximity, not only of history, but the proximity of the community that surround the work. This body of work here, the gatekeeper is another one, Cerberus is here. They almost are like, they have a fleshy quality. If you look at the gatekeeper here, this pink, they almost has an epidermic value, a skin, and that's also something that we will see in another body of work, that the papers that Mark uses for his work are peeled quite often from the wall of the city. So they carry this skin value. They are the skin of the city. But when he takes also a paper from the city, a poster, an advertising, he's also removing a material that has a DNA on it, the DNA of people who touch it, the DNA of people who might be interested in it. So it carries an existing life. But these advertising are also ornaments. They are the ornament of the city. So we will see that with the merchant posters in the next room. He goes from the ornament of the city, the street ornament of the city, this very vernacular, simple, cheap element, to the tapestry, which are the ornament of, I would say, the rich and famous in castle. So he really covers the arc of what an ornament is and where an ornament comes from. The map by the way, are also ornaments. If you go to libraries, traditional museum, or old castle, you would have, the room of tapestries, but often you have also the room of maps with the globes, with this desire through tapestry and room full of maps to understand and to a certain extent to possess and to control the world. So it's not by chance that these two elements are here, tapestries and maps, at the center of this exhibition. There is another element here which is very important. So the dots that were the color part of the McCone report in the 60s. These dots reappear here, but they've been present in many works by Mark Bradford in the past. Mark was explaining that when he started to work during the pandemic, at this moment that he was reminded, because of the sanitary crisis, of what he experienced in the 90s, the AIDS crisis, and how he felt during the pandemic as vulnerable as he was feeling in the 90s because of HIV. There was many paintings in his career, in his work, where you have these dots, they are sanded. They are almost like open wounds at the surface of a skin, and in many ways, maybe I'm over-interpreting the work, but they might send us back or be a reference to this sores, this open sores that you could see on the skin of people who are actually dying from AIDS.